Hari Om. Sahana Bhavatu. Sahana Bhunaktu. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So continue with the first lesson, the Bhagavad-gītā Thematic Study. So this first lesson, who can tell me? It answers two main doubts. I mean, not only the first lesson, the first study karma. There are two main doubts we're dealing with.
Second one is whether the individual soul is equal to the Supreme Soul, and the first one was whether the soul exists.
Yes, very good, thank you. So now please, while we are going through the lessons, keep in mind these two main doubts and try to connect. I will also try to remind you, but you also, on your own, you try to see whether it answers the first doubt or the second doubt, or maybe both. We had also this example. So now we are where? 225. Page 24.
We're at the top of 25.
Okay, let me read just to remind ourselves. Okay, 225. So this is called, this lesson is, the Adhikarana is all living entities are eternal and subordinate to Godhead. And lesson 1, the constitution of all living entities. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. Invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. So invisible means cannot be perceived by our material senses. Inconceivable means it cannot be conceived by the intelligence unless we attain spiritual knowledge from Shastra. We cannot understand the soul. Even if we come in contact with spiritual knowledge, still it is difficult to realize the soul. Immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. The soul is understood only through Shastra Yonic fact. Okay? The soul is inconceivable by human empirical knowledge, and therefore it is not possible to prove the existence of the soul experimentally beyond the proof of Shruti. We have to accept this truth because there is no other source of understanding the existence of the soul. So this is very important because it is a decisive factor. You know that there are types of living entities in the universe, suras and asuras. So very much depends on whether we accept this truth. Which truth? Is that the soul is inconceivable by human empirical knowledge, and therefore it is not possible to prove the existence of the soul. In other words, we are requiring spiritual revelation in order to understand reality. We cannot do it on our own. But this is very important. If we accept this, we have a chance to become godly. If we don't accept, then there is the way to, there is the highway, the lower types of consciousness. And then 226.
There's a footnote.
Oh, there is a footnote, right? Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 3:32-28. Who wants to read this?
Knowledge is therefore acquired by oral perception,
It is confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra, Shastra Yoni Dvat. One has to acquire pure knowledge from the authorized scriptures. So-called speculative arguments about the absolute truth are therefore useless. The actual identity of the living entity is his consciousness, which is always present while the living entity is awake, dreaming, or in deep sleep. Even in deep sleep, he can perceive by consciousness whether he is happy or distressed. Thus, when consciousness is when consciousness is displayed through the medium of the subtle and gross material bodies, it is covered. But when the consciousness is purified in Krishna consciousness, one becomes free from the entanglement of repeated birth and death.
The actual identity of the living entity is his consciousness. Which is always present while the living entity is awake, dreaming, or in deep sleep. So these are the three stages of consciousness. They're called Jagrata, means awake, awakened state, and then Swapna, dreaming, that means with rapid eye movement. Because we dream, the mind is active, although the gross senses are inactive. And then the deep sleep. And when we don't have any dreams. And in this deep sleep, this is the stage where we get actually recharged by the super soul. And therefore, when people don't get into this deep sleep, they don't get rejuvenated. So the consciousness is all pervading, although even in the state of Sushupti, this is the third one. And the proof of this, in Bhagavad-gītā quotes this in his introduction to Bhagavad-gītā commentary. He says that he gives the example of a person who has slept very well, and then he comments in the morning when somebody asks, people ask one another in the morning, so how did you sleep? If they're polite. And then, so then the answer is, I slept so well, I don't remember anything. That means consciousness was still there, the individual consciousness was still there, although the mind was shut down and all the senses were also not active. That means, he gives this argument in connection with the Mayavad theory that when we attain liberation, then we merge with the Lord. But actually, according to this proof, because this deep state is practically the level of liberation, because as the Charis explained, this is when the soul becomes in contact with the super soul. It's temporary, of course, it's not real liberation. But even then, the individual consciousness is still individual consciousness, and then the super soul is still super soul. So even in deep sleep, we can perceive, this is what Sri Prabhupada means. Even in deep sleep, he can perceive by consciousness whether he's happy or distressed. That's the meaning of, I slept so well that I don't remember anything. So that means he still perceives that he has been happy. And it's a happy state because we are in contact with Krishna. Or distressed. So about the distress, I'm not sure what type of example can be given. Maybe. So this when consciousness is displayed through the medium of the subtle and gross material bodies is covered. That means our consciousness is covered by our attachment to the three modes. But when this attachment is overcome, then the real consciousness shines forth and shines through. Then we are who we are. It's funny when people try to, materialistic people, or also devotees, sometimes they try to present themselves as very unique personalities. Oh, this was such a unique amazing moment of my life when I got this revelation. I was truly myself. Actually, this was just a different combination with remotes. It was not you. The real you, the real us began on the level of bhava. Then we can catch a glimpse. Therefore, it is called sthai bhava. Sthai bhava means actually, what is sthai bhava? This is the constant, basic relationship that we have with Krishna. And this sthai bhava is on the level of bhava. Before that, it is not clear. The same with the opinions people have. We should know, this is also stated by Krishna in Bhagavad-gītā, that our opinions, our concepts of life are not the soul proper. They are also products of the subtle body of the mind. In this sense, they are not us. Unless we are on the level of Bhava, then they are us. This is what the soul is. But before that, we should be skeptical about our opinions, unless they follow strictly in the line of Shastra, Guru Sadhu Shastra. Okay, then 226. If, however, so then new topic begins here. If, however, you think that the soul or the symptoms of life is always born and dies forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty art. The atheistic philosophies do not accept the existence of the soul. There is always a class of philosophers who do not accept the Vedas and thus do not believe in the separate existence of the soul beyond the body. When Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad-gītā, it appears that such philosophers existed and they were known as the Lokayatikas and Vaibhashikas. In other words, there has been always a so-called modern man. They always existed. Modern contemporary people, they pride themselves that they are unique because they defy the authority of the Vedas, they defy the tradition, they think that they know better, but they have been always around, all these people. Even when Lord Krishna was here, they were still around. And also in the Manu, it is explained that modern men are those who don't accept the Veda. They're always here. It's not something special. To defy tradition and Shastra and to try to substitute it with mental speculation. It's neither innovative, it's neither new or commendable. So what happens? First, usually what happens, we have the proponents of tradition, brahmanas, saintly persons, sages, etc. And they are presenting the knowledge as it is coming from Shastra. Then in due course of time, as we all know, by the influence of time, the knowledge as it is appears to be lost, then gradually there is degradation in the presentation of this eternal tradition. So these people who are presenting this tradition, the brahmanas, they become a little proud, and they gradually lose the mercy of God, and then the knowledge that they give gradually loses its connection with reality, and then they cannot explain anymore certain phenomena in this material world practically. The mantras don't work. They cannot do what they were doing before. And then some observant people, they start to revolt against it, right? They start calling them out. They say, the king is naked. There is no clothes on the king. So these are the, in the Renaissance, the enlightened people. What they are revolting against, what they are protesting against, is the discrepancy in the presentation of this real knowledge in the spiritual tradition. and they try to substitute this with mental speculation. And because for them it's very important to be practical, they make some practical achievements. They the technical revolution. They come up with some stuff that works, but they lose their connection with God, with the Shastra, and so they are not actually the alternative of this first type of people, the degraded Brahmins. So what they're protesting against, what they are moving forward against, is not the real religion, but it is the perverted reflection of the religion, of the tradition, of the spirituality. So they were actually never in contact with the real religion in a sense. But therefore they don't offer a real alternative. They defy religion as such because of some bad representations, imperfect representation of the religious tradition. And all these people say that soul comes from matter. All these materialistic people. We will read now about them. Such philosophers maintain that life symptoms take place at a certain mature condition of material combination. So when the matter self-organizes itself, then spontaneously consciousness appears. Although they cannot prove this. So there is a footnote. Okay, let's read the whole paragraph and then we read the footnote. The modern material scientists and materialist philosophers also think similarly. According to them, the body is a combination of physical elements, and at a certain stage, the life symptoms develop by interaction of the physical and chemical elements. Okay, Srila Baladevi Vibhushan writes in his commentary to this verse, 226. Having given his own opinion on why one should not lament for the soul. So what did Krishna say? Why one should not lament for the soul? What is Krishna's opinion?
The soul is eternal.
Yes, it doesn't die. You cannot cut into pieces. You cannot burn it by fire. You cannot moisten it by water. You cannot dry it by the wind. The soul is eternal. But then Arjuna says, well, okay, still, I will miss my dear ones when they leave this world. Then what Krishna says to this?
Body is temporary, someday will be temporary. It's more time.
Yes, and still, Arjuna is. What about the pangs of separation? Because you don't contact this, you don't associate with these people anymore. They are dear to you. What Krishna says to this. The only solace is you have to tolerate. That's all. This will happen inevitably. Happiness and distress, summer and winter, they come and go. But while tolerating the separation, if you have transcendental knowledge, it will make it will ease the pain. In New York, they have this advertisement all over the place, in the subway, in the city. Injury lawyers. Have you seen this, church? Injury lawyers.
Injury lawyers, yeah.
All over the place. People get some injury, and then these guys, they come forward. Okay, you got injury. We'll help you to get some good settlement, financial settlement with the persons who are responsible for this. And then there was one advertisement. Nothing eases the pain as a fat, big financial settlement. You remember this scene? And then being injured, another one. Being injured sucks, but it sucks much less if you have good money. If you get so all these guys, they're like big, fat, red-faced, healthy, vigorous lawyers, and they're like. So that actually doesn't work in this way. But if money will not help you in this regard, really. but transcendental knowledge will. So if we have transcendental knowledge, then we will overcome the material pain. We won't be affected by it. So the modern material science. Okay, we read this. Having given his own opinion on why one should not lament for the soul, the Lord now speaks of the opinion of others in order to give other viewpoints. That's very funny. Have you heard how people are insisting that the other viewpoints should be presented also? Like in the news or in academia also, when you write a paper and you present your viewpoints, so you are supposed to also say that some people don't agree with you. That's what people expect. This makes your presentation very sophisticated, presumably up to date. People expect this. Otherwise, you're just some kind of fanatic who just presents one viewpoint, very narrow-minded. And here you go, Krishna, long time ago, before all these people ever existed, well, they were existing, before they became so concerned about being all-inclusive and tolerant, etc. Krishna presents other opinions of these other people. And these opinions are against his own opinion. They contradict his own opinion. And this is the supreme authority. This is another very interesting point. What do you do with the others? Like you have in this Game of Thrones, you have these others, the other living entities who are functioning on a completely different, opposite principle of existence. Whenever they appear, they froze everything. And what do you do with these people? They're different from you. This is a very important question, especially if you're the Almighty God. So people try to get rid of all these other people usually, and they are not God, they are not Almighty. But if you are the Supreme Authority, what do you do with these people who don't agree with you? Here we see that Krishna let them exist, doesn't destroy them, because they have free will. All these different philosophers you will be quoting now, they're there, and he even presents their viewpoint. Krishna doesn't destroy all people who don't agree with him. He doesn't need to do this in order to establish himself as authority. He is God, a supreme authority, no matter what. So he presents their opinion, and he presents his opinion. And then we're supposed to make the right choice. The student, knowing these viewpoints and consequently destroying them along with their contamination, that's also important. All these conflicting viewpoints, conflicting with the original viewpoint of Krishna, they are a result of contamination. This is a symptom of anartha, of material attachment. Therefore, people have these opinions. There's one philosopher who said that our passions become the axioms of our philosophy. So we attach to something very badly, and then we present this as the universal philosophy. And then also, I think the same guy who said that. So therefore, every philosophy is a involuntary, unconscious self-diagnosis of a certain disease that you have. Right? Srila Prabhupada also explains there are the three modes, and they are connected to our way of thinking, to our intelligence, to the mind. Not only connected, they control our view of the world, our philosophy. So if we are under the mode of goodness, we will have this type of philosophy. We will have this type of religion. We will worship demigods. If you are in the mode of passion, you will worship demons. You will have different philosophy. You will have different food, different clothing, different friends. Everything will be different. And if you are in the mode of ignorance, then you worship ghosts, spirits. goblins, etc. So depending on our purity, the level of consciousness we have, then this predetermines our philosophy that we subscribe, our religion. Okay, the student, knowing these viewpoints and consequently destroying them along with their contamination, should remain fixed, victorious in the Lord's viewpoint. Then, yeah.
I was thinking about how about some traditions, for example, are they also some deviations from the, let's say, standard culture? Because whatever I could think, maybe some different cuisines or these things, always I see there's some element of passion or maybe even ignorance. I hardly can think of some cuisine which is purely sattvic, apart from standard Vedic.
Cuisine, we're talking about food now.
Yeah.
So
not only this, just as an example of some tradition.
So what's the question?
So are they also kind of own philosophies or deviations, or they can be accommodated within the Vaishnava philosophy?
As long as they follow the no fish, no meat, no eggs, no oil, onion, garlic, and there can be some provision.
Because Krishna also says, I think, maybe it's in nectar devotion, that if there are some local preparations which are appreciated, it can be also, it can be open.
Two principles. One is you offer the best that you know of to Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
So your favorite food is pizza. So you make pizza for Krishna. Little more developed than this. This is also good. Is you find out what is Krishna's favorite. What he likes to eat. You find the Bhakti-yoga song, Bhagavad-gītā, then there is a long list of different things. And then you offer this to Krishna. So this is more advanced. But both are good. But if you're on the first level, you shouldn't get stuck there and present it as the ultimate level of advancement. It's not the ultimate. It is good, but it's not the best. Just like if you have a friend, let's say you're sick, you cannot cook for yourself, and you have a good friend, and you ask him, could you please prepare something I cannot cook right now? Make lunch. And then he says, well, I'm a musician, actually. I don't like cooking. Sorry, if you want, I can make some music for you and play it, but don't ask me to cook. That's not my thing. I don't do this. You wouldn't consider this your best friend. It's kind of a friend. But he will put his own preference above your needs. So in the same way, at one point we'll have to give Krishna what he wants, not what we like. And okay, I like it, then I offer it to Krishna. Yeah, there is difference. One is devotion, the other is pure devotion. Is this okay? Answer. You understood correctly the question. When one is endowed with body, such as the human form, composed of the four elements, earth, water, life, and air. So this is so now we're presenting the viewpoint of these materialistic, atheistic people. The first one that we're reading now is the Charvaka philosophy. They're called here Lokayatas. So they say, when one is endowed with a body, such as the human form, composed of the four elements, earth, water, life, and air, fire, and air, thank you. Consciousness arises simply from that. Just simply from that, just like that. Just as red color arises from betel nut, or the potency arises in liquor. I guess the potency in liquor that he refers to is the potency of becoming drunk. It doesn't look like, when you see it's a normal liquid, water. But when you drink it, there is different potency in it. So I guess that's what he means. And
or also say, for example, something can start out grape juice, but over time, as it ferments, then the potency of
that's
the alcohol
also-
comes there.
Right.
And then, so not, yeah,
Oh, that's what he means.
I think maybe. It's easy.
Yeah, because it goes along with the first example, battlement, because you have to chew the battlement or grind it, and then it becomes right. Okay, so in the same way, then consciousness arises simply from that. That body made of 4 elements is itself the Atma. There is some Greek philosophers who also told that there is a soul, but their concept of the soul is different. The soul is simply the shape of the object, of any object. For example, if you have an axe, the shape of the axe is the soul, because the very shape of this instrument enables it to perform its duty. If it's not in this shape, if it's not sharp, then it cannot cut. So the soul is something like what we would say, something like the dharma of the object. Like the salt is salty, the knife should be sharp, the axe should be also. So this is the soul. This is concept about the soul. The soul doesn't exist in this that matter though. The soul is different. That body, okay. That body made of 4 elements is itself the Atma. This body is real, and it is a subject of appearance and disappearance because of its nature of constant change. And this is known by regular perception. This is what the Lokayatas maintain. Charvak is there, so this is the Charvakas philosophy. The body is itself the Atma. But then the Atma is supposed to be eternal, but the body is not eternal. So then they use the same word, but they have different understanding. The Buddhists, such as the Vaibhashikas, maintain that the Atma is Vijnana Swarupa, different from the body, but it is still an object of destruction at every moment. So again, the soul is not eternal. In both these philosophies, there should be no lamentation for the Atma. But they still lament when somebody dies, all these people, materialists, although they should not be lamenting. So these are the 2 opinions that Krishna presents. First is the Charvakas, and then sometimes the Buddhists. So according to this opinion, there is no soul proper, and there is just matter. And therefore, one should not lament also, because if only matter exists, it doesn't matter. Because matter doesn't disappear, it always stays here. It just changes in different shapes, different forms, different varieties, but it is here. It doesn't disappear. And also, if we are just a bulk of chemicals, Prabhupada writes this in one proper, who will lament because some few material elements just got changed, transformed into something else. Why lament? It happens all the time. So then, to 27, one who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after that one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Jatasihi dhruvam vidyum dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmat apriharite natvam shochitum arhasi. Unavoidable discharge of your duty. That means dharma. No matter what happens, we have to take shelter in the performance of our duty. Because what will happen anyway. But if we perform our duties, our next episode of our life will be very auspicious. And if we don't, then it won't. To 28. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? There should be no lamentation for the loss of the material body, accepting that there are two classes of philosophers. One believing, here Krishna still presents these different opinions. One believing in the existence of the soul, and the other not believing in the existence of the soul. There is no cause for limitation in either case. Non-believers in the existence of the soul are called atheists by followers of Vedic wisdom. Yet, even if, for argument's sake, we accept that this atheistic theory, there is still no cause for limitation. The law of conservation of energy remains, but in course of time, things are manifested and unmanifested. That is the difference. Then what cause is there for limitation, either in the stage of manifestation or in the in unmanifestation? Somehow or other, even in the unmanifested stage, things are not lost. So like one friend of mine talking about this topic, he told me, no problem, some goats will eat us after we die, because when we die, the body disintegrates in the earth, and then the earth produces different vegetation, so it will be grass, and then some goats will eat us. He was trying to present the same point, actually. Not a big deal, that's what it is. But this is when you're young and energetic and in good consciousness. When old age actually kicks in, people start thinking in different ways. I've noticed. So, yeah. Somehow or other, okay, both in the beginning and the end, the elements remain unmanifested. All elements remain unmanifested, and only in the middle are they manifested. And this does not make any real material difference. If all is matter, it doesn't matter. From spiritual point of view, all material bodies are perishable in due course of time. But the soul is eternal. So this was the first paragraph is the viewpoint of the materialist atheists. And then the second, the spiritual point of view. All material bodies are perishable in due course of time, but the soul is eternal. If the body is like a dress, while meant for changing of a dress, the material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. It is something like a dream. In a dream, we may think of flying in the sky or sitting on a chariot as a king, but when we wake up, we can see that we are neither in the sky nor seated in the chariot. The Vedic wisdom encourages self-realization on the basis of the non-existence of the material body. Therefore, in either case, whether one believes in the existence of the soul or one does not believe in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for limitation, for loss of the body. If you noticed when we have a dream, dreams sometimes are very real. While in the dream, not sometimes, most of the time. It is rare when we are dreaming, at least in my experience, I don't know about. While dreaming, it is rare to be aware that you're dreaming. No? How is it with you?
Very real.
It's a real experience most of the time. Sometimes you're aware that or you are like, oh, I hope this is a dream. The point is that the fact that we are convinced that this is real doesn't mean that it is real. Just like in a dream, we're convinced this is reality. Then we wake up and we see, oh, it was not real. So we may be very much convinced that this is me, and still we might be in illusion. We are in illusion. This is not us. And okay, here there was something very interesting. Both at the beginning and at the end, all elements remain unmanifested, and only in the middle are they manifested. And this does not make any real material difference. When I was a kid, I watched one movie by Monty Python called The Life of Brian. Have you seen this movie? So Brian is actually Jesus Christ, but because these guys, they are non-believers, they like to make fun of all kinds of religious people. So they presented it in such a way that, everything was just one comedy, all this thing about Jesus Christ. He was actually one guy called Brian. He's not Jesus Christ, nothing like it. And anyway, the point is that at the end of the story, when Brian they mistook him for some kind of Messiah, which he was not. The guy was completely nothing to do with it, but somehow, by bad luck, people believed in him that he's the Messiah, and the authorities, they saw him as a threat to their power, so they had to execute him. So they crucified him. And then there were Brian and then two other guys, and some other guys also. And then one of them said something very similar to this. He said, "Hey man, we came from nowhere, from nothing. We did not exist like 30 years ago, 20 years ago. We came into existence by, I don't know what happened, something happened, and we existed for a while, and now we go back to our original stage of non-existence. So what do we lose? We don't lose anything, right? We only gained this, whatever they are, like 20, 30 years of, we existed, we had some fun, we did something, and now we go back. Why do we have to remember? Right? I think these Monty Python guys, they might have like this, maybe, because basically the same argument. Right, well, good, okay, but somehow it doesn't help. At the moment of death, all these things don't help somehow, usually. People are quite upset. Okay, so continue. (229). Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. So here, remember the two doubts that we're dealing with? So which doubt is here? Or maybe both?
Looks like both.
And also, looks like it's connected to the point Srila Prabhupada was making before, and Krishna also, that you can understand the soul only through spiritual revelation. And even then, even after hearing about him, you cannot understand him at all. And even when you're in contact with the spiritual sound, unless you are blessed by this chitt potency of the Lord, by mercy of the spiritual master, still you won't be able to understand. 230. O descendant of Bharat, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being. And now, this paragraph, Srila Prabhupada summarizes all discussion to now from beginning of this adhikara. The Lord concludes his instructions on the soul. In describing the immortal soul in various ways, Lord Krishna establishes that the soul is immortal and the body is temporary. Therefore, Arjuna, as a Kshatriya, should not abandon his duty out of fear that his grandfather and teacher, Bhishma and Drona, will die in the battle. On the authority of Sri Krishna, one has to believe that there is a soul different from the material body. Not that there is no such thing as a soul, or that living symptoms develop at a certain stage of material maturity, resulting from the interaction of chemicals. Though the soul is immortal, violence is not encouraged, but at the time of war, it is not discouraged when there is actual need for it. That need must be justified in terms of the sanction of the Lord and not capriciously. As we mentioned before, all these materialistic philosophers, they accept that the soul originates from matter. Even, the materialists, atheists, not spiritual people, that's clear. But even like the Mayavadis, for example, they also think that the soul comes from Maya, because the soul is an illusion, the individual soul. So when Brahman is in Maya, then he thinks he's the soul. Although it's contradictory, how can Brahman be in Maya? Or the Buddhists also, they're also types of Mayavadis. They also think that the soul is just like this movie that I was telling. The soul, originally there is nothing, it's a shunya, it's a void. And then somehow by bad luck, we come into existence. And then we have to, as soon as possible, we have to get back to this voidness, because the existence itself is suffering. So that means, again, the soul is a product of Maya. And the materialists also think that the consciousness appears because of material elements combined together. Okay, so then, yes.
What are the symptoms of a person who has the realization that he is not the body, that he is the soul? Because we are, last time you mentioned that we are preaching this, but when it comes to some situation, we are surprised.
Oh, what I was preaching actually applies to my body as well. Krishna, in second chapter, Arjuna asked this question: what are the symptoms of somebody who is established in transcendence, Stita Pragya? And the first thing Krishna replies is several verses, but the first thing Krishna says is Prajahatiya da kaman sarvan partamanavatan atmani evatmana tushtas Stita Pragyas Padocchite. Or maybe this was the other one. Anyway, Prajahatiya da kaman sarvan partamanavatan. This person has given up all desires for sense gratification. But really, he became vrtti. He's not just renouncing them. He's not a tyagi. He's still attracted, but he tries to. But he has become detached from them. So that vairagya is more vrtti. And all of his aspirations are, all of his desires are fulfilled by his spiritual practice alone. Atmani evatmana tushta. Tushti, he attains tushti only through Atma. So these are the symptoms. And then, because Arjuna asked different questions, how he walks, how he talks, how he... Krishna explains all this, but this is the main thing. So no material desires, all desires of the soul proper are satisfied by devotion service. Just like these birds, chakora, I think. For them, it is known that they drink only certain type of water, only raindrops. They don't drink other water. So if there is no rain, they don't drink. So we're supposed to become like that. All types of happiness that I need will be provided by me chanting 16 rounds, or more than 16 rounds, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, going for a Harinam Sankirtan, and performing different types of services. Anything that I need will be provided by bhakti alone. And if you think that, okay, this is my bhakti life, and then I have my private life, where I need to squeeze out some additional purification, then we are not in this level. And therefore we have problems. Therefore, Krishna in second canto, he says that, it's not Krishna, it's Shukadeva Goswami. He says, Antakale to Purusha, Agate Gatta Sadvasaha, Chindyata Sangha Shastra, Misprihim Dehen Vyachita. At the moment of death, one should be fearless, one should be bold enough. One should be bold and one should be not afraid of death. But in order to be in such a state of consciousness, one should, prior to that, give up all attachments to the body and to all things that are connected to the body. Otherwise, one will be afraid. Imagine we're not attached to our body. Life will be so much simpler. Just this one. But this is the core attachment, because the attachment to other people connected to the body is secondary. We think we are very much attached to our family, to our children. Actually, the core attachment is our own. But these are the symptoms, and we can read second chapter. There are more. Like another symptom is
They steal your shoes. Or your way appears.
Yeah. Like Bhakti-yoga Maharaj use. Giving an example, наша учитель Канчати, самообсервation, Buddhishuma, Bhakti, whatever. One Brahma Personatma, one who is on this level, he doesn't lament for anything that has been lost, and he doesn't hanker after anything that he doesn't have. Because Krishna explains, Yoga Kshema Vahamyaham. Whatever you lack, I'll give you, so you don't have to Kankshati, Nashvashati, and whatever you have, I will keep. I will make sure that you have forever what you have attained by my mercy. So then Maharaj was saying how somebody stole his phone, or he lost his phone, and he said, "Well, then I got in so much anxiety because I had so many things on my phone, so much things about this and that, my service and all these contacts, and the whole night I couldn't sleep, and I was thinking, well, that means I'm not Nashvashati and Akamshati, I'm not actually Brahma Buddha Prasanam." And then in the next morning, some brahmachari came and said, "Maharaj, don't worry, we have kept all of your data in some," Maharaj was very funny, "in some cloud, all my," so I was very relieved, very much relieved. This is like years back when these things were not so common, all this.
But if it rains, then the cloud is gone, and what happens then?
Some cloud. Kurmum Ganiva Sarvashaka, another symptom. What was this verse? Can you find it? Indriya Tebyastasya Pragyatishtha. Just like the tortoise, he yes, when he decides that I need to do something useful, then I will use my senses. And when there is no anymore anything productive to be done for my spiritual advancement, then I will withdraw.
It's 258. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness.
Yeah, and how it starts?
Yada
Samharate
chayam
chayam kurmam ganiva
sarvashaha indriyate yastasya pragya.
Another thing. Or like one of my teachers, he was saying that the devotee, he wants to do something only when there is some gain, spiritual gain. Otherwise, it's useless. You don't gain anything by spacing out. There's no real gain. You don't develop a connection, relationship with Krishna. Okay, and then the other verse. About the day and night, what is night for the conditioned soul is a day for the introspective sage. So, yes.
I just wanted to mention that these few verses from second chapter, they finish with very famous verse, Vishaya Vardante. Which actually means that like normal people, they may be able to restrain their senses to a certain extent, but actually internally they still have attachment. So it's more or less temporary situation. It's a question of time where they will jump again and enjoy the sense object. But the real person who is situated on a transcendental platform, he has already a different taste. And because of these different tastes, he can easily control his senses. Because he just wants to use them in a different way. He doesn't want to use them anymore. Previously.
Yes. Atma rutir eva syat atma triptascha manava atmani eva cha santushta. Again, atmani eva cha santushta. Tasya pragya pratishtita. In the third chapter of Gita, Krishna discusses the concept of duty, and then after explaining this concept, then he says, but for a person who has developed a taste for Atma, for spiritual pursuit, for him there is no duty. Atma Rakir, Atma Triptasha, whose all aspirations are satisfied in the Atma alone, for him there is no duty, because he has attained perfection. Okay.
This means also that even to perform any duty, we should be on such state, kind of. Because if we don't, if we are distracted by any desires, it's hard to focus on duty.
Yeah, in a sense, yes. We have to develop sattva guna at least to this extent that we are focused on the present duty that we perform without thinking about the gain that we will have. At least that much. Like when you're cooking, you have to focus on cooking, otherwise it can be dangerous. You can cut yourself or burn yourself. You shouldn't think about eating. You should think about cooking and then eating, offering it first and then eating. Yes.
I was just going to say that this section, Krishna is using Panchanga pretty clearly. So you'll see that this thesis is repeatedly being mentioned, the conclusion, in the beginning of this, that the body can't be slain, therefore there's no reason to grieve. So that point comes up in many verses. But while he's giving first he states a thesis, and then he gives a logical example, just like you're passing in this body from blood to old age. And then he gives a tangible example, taking off clothes and putting on new ones. So, and then you have that. And then he's also saying, okay, and then even if you have this doubt that maybe the soul isn't eternal, right? Or maybe it's part of matter, still, there's no reason to lament. He doesn't say, well, that's just a foolish notion. Obviously, the soul is. He says, okay, let's just
For argument's sake.
Yeah, for argument's sake, let's say the soul is material, and there's still no reason to lament because it's going to go.
So this will be Rupanaya. This
Yeah.
one is Rupanaya because
And then
he integrates the opinions of others.
Yeah.
And then he concludes.
yeah,
Yeah,
right. So I like how when Krishna is doing it, he's constantly restating the thesis at every step of the way, just in case you forget. Wait, what are we trying to actually?
Yeah. And that's
So
our
it's
problem.
repeated.
Because we get carried away and forget about the thesis of
Yeah, because we don't see the connection. Okay, so why did you tell me that example? Oh,
Yeah.
because it leads back to.
Yeah, like in the beginning when I was studying Gita, before I read, before Skotar Maharaj told me, you should study Bhagavad-gita, but please read Bhujam Prabhu's book. It's an excellent book on Gita, Surrender to me. There you'll see the connections. And this is my problem, which is exactly what Charles Chamber was explaining. I couldn't see the connection. Why? Now we're talking about this and he's talking about the next topic. There's absolutely there's no connection. I didn't see any logic. Why? And then when you get knowledge, then you understand the connection. Yes.
I have a doubt.
Some sort.
My doubt is when Krishna is speaking about the opinions of others, and he's saying, okay, some are saying, actually there is no soul, just like material elements, they are kind of connecting, and then the life appears, and then soon the life will disappear again, or the opinion of the Buddhists that they are saying, no, there is soul, but the soul is actually also not eternal.
But the soul is material.
Yeah. So then, after Krishna is explaining these different viewpoints, he is saying, that's why still you have to perform your duty. So now my doubt is, well, someone may say, if we think that there is no soul, then why I have to do anything at all? Let me
You could
just
do it or you could not do
yeah, there is no difference.
Yeah.
Like why Krishna is especially using these other theories to come again to the same conclusion that you have to perform your duty. From my how to say
it. 227 answers that.
yeah, the 27. Like from my point of view, I would say, well, we can say then, if anyway we are not existing, it doesn't matter if you're doing something or you're not doing, if you're following the laws of the universe or you're not following.
Yeah, Charvaka. He says doesn't matter. You beg, borrow, steal because there is nothing after that. So you might as well enjoy while you can here, right?
Yes.
Forget about duty. Your only duty is to enjoy, because that's only interval of time that you have. It's very short. Then you go back to the life of Brian. You know? There is no life. There is no before, not prior, not after.
Yeah, so why Krishna
So, okay.
is putting the stress on the duty? Why did, like, especially from the viewpoint of Western guy,
Because it's unavoidable.
how it's unavoidable to do it?
Because you can't live if you don't do some action. You don't eat, you don't live, you don't.
Yeah, action I'll do, but I'll do whatever, like, I wake up in the morning and whatever comes naturally, this is what I like.
Yeah, but right now, the only conversation is whether you should lament for the soul and therefore do your duty. It's not which duty should I do and why. So Krishna here is just pointing out that you have to act, it's unavoidable. So don't lament for the loss of, these material bodies because they're temporary anyway. Because he's a Kshatriya, so he has to engage in warfare. That's sanctioned by the Lord.
And that was then pointed out that it shouldn't be, what was it? That it's not capriciously, yeah.
In other words, you're saying that why don't use this as an excuse?
Not
Yeah, because here obviously we're talking about people high in the modes, like Arjuna, Krishna. I'm sure some people who are low in the modes, they would actually use this as an excuse not to do anything.
And at some
Could
point, Arjuna does.
At one point, yeah.
Yeah.
This part,
But that'll be a different discussion. This discussion is just whether, because he gave that argument that, all these people would be killed. So this existed. But then he'll say, let's just go out into the woods and not do anything. And then that'll be a different discussion. It basically branches off of this one.
and also, you said, well, I just wake up in the morning and I do whatever, right? But even materialistic people who are higher, little higher in the modes, they know that this is not working. Because as our friend, the Bhakti-yoga, our friend, he said that there are innumerable ways you can speculate about your duty. A number of theories about reality. But there is very limited number of ways of acting that actually work in this world. And nobody can deny this, even the atheist, whoever you are, you cannot go against it. There are very small number of rich people in this, who actually, in this world, who actually, I forgot what was the percentage, but 1% holds like 50% of resources or something. So how do you get there? Just by waking up in the morning and whatever? No.
So even if you really want to enjoy, you have to.
Then there are rules you have to follow. Whether you are intelligent enough to connect these duties back to the origin or no, it depends on personal level of understanding, but they are there, and people know there are certain things you ought to do, you must do. And because they're clever, they project to the masses of people that they don't have to do anything. You just be who you are, you be the full number one, and somehow or other you will succeed in life. There's so many movies like this. There's some complete nonsense guy, and then he suddenly has to save the universe from the aliens. This guy, he cannot even. He lives in the basement of his parents. And now he's like the greatest hero of human history. The guy who made the movie doesn't believe this. The guy who made the movie and who wrote the script and who made the money out of it, he doesn't believe this, but he's selling this to the people so that they believe. So I don't have to do anything. I'll just, wake up in the morning, do whatever I like, and it will happen somehow.
It's kind of like what the Sahaj's philosophy.
Nature.
They don't have to do anything, but one day they're all of a sudden going to become spontaneously attracted.
They don't have to follow sadhana, perform tapasya. In fact, if you perform tapasya study, then they say you are smart or jnani or okay. So because what Charachana Prabhu mentioned that there is a very nice Panchanga in this lesson. So this has been noticed by the
Compilers of study.
by the compilers of the study guide. So let's see how they
Was that
outlined.
Was that before?
This is page 9. Yeah, that's exactly the section we skipped. So now let's go back. Yeah, let's see. The Vikarana supported by evidence. So this is page 8 actually. So, vrtti, samshaya, doubt. The beginning of Bhagavad-gita applies to two prominent doubts. Is there an internal spirit soul different from the material body? If such a soul exists, is it fully identical with Godhead? So now, Purva Paksha, this is the reason for the doubt. The first doubt is connected to the atheistic philosophy of Charvaka. The followers of Charvaka maintain that consciousness, normally regarded as proof for the existence of the soul, is just another product of matter. It should not be told, they say, that because the elements of matter are unconscious, there can be no consciousness in objects made by them. There are many examples in which qualities originally absent in the component parts are developed when the parts are combined together in a particular way. For instance, betel leaf, nut, and lime, chewed together, acquire red tinge, originally absent in any of the constituents. Yeah. Similarly, the elements of matter combined together in a particular way give rise to the living body having consciousness. Since consciousness ceases to exist when with the end of the body, when man dies, nothing of him is left to enjoy or suffer the consequences of his actions hereafter. Therefore, Charvaka urges his followers, if you have no money, then beg, borrow, or steal, but in some way secure ghee and enjoy life. Okay, so this is the first doubt. This is, extended reason for that. We had it already, this one sentence. The second doubt refers to the Mahabharata doctrine of Bhagavad-gītā, exclusive monism. The Mahabharatas claim that the soul and the supersoul are identical in all respects, as it is explained by Srila Baladevi Vibhushan in his commentary on Vedanta Sutra, Adhikaram 11, Pada 3. The Mahabharatas argue that the soul and the supersoul are like the sky within the pot and the great sky beyond it. When the soul is liberated, he becomes the supersoul. Just as when the pot is broken, the sky in the pot becomes the same as the great sky beyond. So what is wrong with this example? The famous example of the pot and the sky. So we have ether in the pot, and then you break the pot, and then this ether just merges into the greater ether, the universe. So what's wrong with this example? And this is about the soul and the supersoul, right? So what's wrong with this? there is a verse from second chapter of Bhagavad-gītā we could quote immediately to refute this example. Nainam chindanti shastrani. The soul cannot be cut in pieces. Not cut Brahman with diamond into different pieces and then put it in different pots. It's uncuttable. Okay, let's continue.
Another one that is used commonly, which we used when we went through here, is that never was there a time where the Thematic Study,
Right.
nor shall at any point shall we ever cease
To be this.
So if we're still individuals in the
Here, the Mahāvadis would say, well, here Krishna speaks about the conventional appearance of the individual, not about the real one. But then Shiva Prabhupada has something to say in the purpose there. Prabhupada explains, no, this is not the case. Spiritual individuality all along. Anyway, okay, so when the soul is liberated, he becomes the super soul. Just as because the soul is the supreme personality of Godhead, he is the creator of the universe, and everything else that the supreme is. In this way, there is no difference between the soul and the supreme Brahman. To support their view, the Mayavadis quote the following verse from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Who is the self? He is a person full of knowledge, who stays in the life breath. He is the splendor in the heart, remaining always the same. He wanders in two worlds. This self is the omniscient Brahman. He becomes free from all desires. Being Brahman, he attains Brahman. He who knows this becomes the fearless Brahman. Okay, a lot of things to say about also this quotation. So this is the doubt and the reasons for the doubt, and now the conclusion is what we are reading. Adhikarana 1, the living entities are eternal and subordinate to Godhead. And now, let's see how this Panchanga Nyaya is outlined. Pratigya, thesis, is lesson 1. The constitution of all living entities is to be eternal servants of the Godhead. So this is added by the compilers in the brackets.
But it's also Srila Prabhupada's outline.
Yes, the first part. The constitution of all living entities, and we added is to be eternal servants of Godhead. Then had to reason why. This is lesson 2. The living entities are parts and parcels of Godhead. Then Udaharana example. The living entities compared to the sun and sun rays. So this is the example. And then there are more examples. Then Upanaya, the Lord and living entities are qualitatively one and the same. So this is supposed to be Upanaya. Then Siddhanta, Krishna begets all living beings in the womb of Mother Nature. Okay, something. Could be done better. So let's go back to the. Okay, lesson 2. Parts and parcels of Godhead. 15:7. Who wants to read?
Living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. First point in the purport. The living entity is eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. The living entity is eternally the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. It is not that he assumes individuality in his condition of life, and in his liberated state becomes one with the Supreme Lord. He is eternally fragmental. Second point. The living entities are Lord's separated expansions. The Supreme Lord manifests and expands himself in innumerable expansions, of which the primary expansions are called Vishnu Tattva, and the secondary expansions are called living entities. In other words, the Vishnu Tattva is the personal expansion, and the living entities are the separated expansions. By his personal expansion in various forms like Lord Rama, Nrsimha, Vishnumurti, and all the predominating deities in the Vaikuntha planets. The separated expansions, the living entities, are eternally servitors.
Okay. So then the first 2 points are the living entities are eternally fragmented, they are eternally separated from the Lord. In other words, the same what Krishna explained in 2:12. Not Vevaham Jatuna Samnatam Nejanaviva, Nachaiva Nabhavishya Sarvayatapara. There is no time when you or we or all these kings never did not exist. So they are eternal individualities. And the second part is that there are 2 types of expansions of the Lord. The first is personal expansions. These are Rama, Nrsimhadev, Vishnu, etc. And then the second is separated, and the separated are the living entities. Okay, then the soul becomes conditioned by misusing his independence. Who wants to read this? Who is next?
Every living entity as an individual soul has its personal individuality and a minute form of independence. By misuse of that independence, one becomes a conditioned soul, and by proper use of independence, he is always liberated. In either case, he is qualitatively eternal as the Supreme Lord is. In his liberated state, he is freed from this material condition, and he is under the engagement of transcendental service unto the Lord. In his conditioned life, he is dominated by the material modes of nature, and he forgets the transcendental loving service to the Lord. As a result, he has to struggle very hard to maintain his existence in the material world.
The mind drives the living entity in the material world, maybe.
The word karshiti, struggling or grappling hard, is very significant. The conditioned soul is bound up, as thought shackled by iron chains. He is bound up by the false ego, and the mind is the chief agent which is driving him in this material existence. It is stated here that when a living entity gives up this material embodiment and enters into the spiritual world, he revives his spiritual body. In his spiritual body, he can see the Supreme Personality of God face to face.
So how do we struggle with the mind? Grappling hard, struggling with the mind. What that means?
Means that constantly the mind wants things which may not be favorable for our self-realization.
Yes. And as an advocate of the senses, he presents to us the intelligence, the soul, a very appealing case. If we don't satisfy these desires, we will go crazy. You completely better to maybe you're not so advanced devotee, but at least stay sane. Because when you're sane, at least you can do something. If you go completely mad, then what you do? So better, satisfy this. There's a long list of desires. I need this, I need that, and then we'll strike a deal with you. And then I'll cooperate. Then we have to struggle against this. And sometimes the mind convinces the intelligence also. And intelligence becomes won over, just like Krishna explains in Gita that the enemy, in third chapter, the enemy has captured strategic places in our body, in the senses, in the mind, and in the intelligence. And therefore, it's a grappling hard, struggling. It's no joke. The living entity attains a spiritual body of liberation. The word Mamavamsha, fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also very significant. The fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord is not like some material broken part. We have already understood in the second chapter that the spirit cannot be cut into pieces. Nainam Chindanti Shastrani. This fragment is not materially conceived. It is not like matter, which can be cut into pieces and joined together again. That conception is not applicable here because the Sanskrit word Sanatana, eternal, is used. The fragmental portion is eternal. It is also stated in the beginning of the second chapter that in each and every individual body, the fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord is present. That fragmental portion, when liberated from the bodily entanglement, revives its original spiritual body in the spiritual sky, in a spiritual planet, and enjoys association with the Supreme Lord. It is, however, understood here that the living entity, being the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is qualitatively one with the Lord, just as the parts and parcels of gold are also gold. Okay, lesson 3. Living entities compared to the sun and sun rays. So we're talking about the nature of the soul here. The soul is spiritual, eternal, and is different from the Supreme Soul. These are the two doubts that we are dealing with. Living entities compared to the sun and sun rays. Here, the main thing about this lesson is to distinguish between the soul and super soul. And the analogy is sun and sun rays. 1334. O son of Bharat, as the sun alone illuminates all the universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. The individual consciousness is different from the supreme consciousness. When the soul is present in the body, there is consciousness all over the body, and as soon as the soul has passed from the body, there is no more consciousness. This can be easily understood by any intelligent man. Therefore, consciousness is not a product of the combination of matter. It is symptom of the living entity. The consciousness of the living entity, although qualitatively one with the supreme consciousness, is not supreme, because the consciousness of one particular body does not share that of another body. Therefore, Chaitanya Charitamrita explains that the pain and the suffering of one person cannot be understood by others. Srimati Radharani says this. Because our consciousness is not like the supreme consciousness, but Krishna can understand. But the super soul, which is situated in all bodies as the friend of the individual soul, is conscious of all bodies. That is the difference between supreme consciousness and individual consciousness. Okay, that was lesson 3. Lesson 4. Qualitatively one and the same, 14.2. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. As established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. So this is the result of transcendental knowledge. It is liberation. If we have this knowledge, we'll be liberated, if we realize it. After acquiring perfect transcendental knowledge, one acquires qualitative equality with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, becoming free from the repetition of birth and death. One does not, however, lose his identity as an individual soul. Nam karmani vimbanti, nam karma palestrita. In Bhagavad-gītā, Krishna explains this, that I'm not bound by the results of my action, and nam karma palestrita. And whoever knows this truth about me is also not bound. In other words, he's also liberated, just like I am. I'm not attached to the results. Material knowledge is contaminated by the 3 modes of material nature. So how is material knowledge contaminated by the 3 modes of material nature? What is the meaning of this? How the material knowledge continue?
It will make you identify either with Sattva Guna or with Rajaguna or with Tamaguna. Means you will not think that you are a spiritual identity. You will think that you are something material. Either the gross body, or the senses, or the subtle mind, the intelligence, but you identify with something.
Okay, that means the Sambandha Gyan will be wrong. Unless in case of Sattva Guna, when it might be correct to some extent, right? Then in Sattva, you will know you're the soul, but then you'll think I'm the supreme soul. Which is still a problem.
So it's still material.
It's material thinking. So because the Sambandha is wrong, then all other aspects will be wrong too. So knowledge which is not contaminated by the three modes of nature is called transcendental knowledge. One who is situated in transcendental knowledge is on the same platform as the Supreme Person, equal in quality with him. He attains spiritual form and engages in spiritual activities. This spiritual situation is called devotional life. Okay. Lesson 5. Krishna begets all living entities in the womb of Mother Nature. 14.3. The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, or Son Bharata. So now, what is the origin of the living entities, although they are eternal? How they appear? Because Krishna is their father. The material world is a combination of Kshetra and Kshetriya. Everything that takes place in the material world is due to the combination of Kshetra and Kshetriya, the body and the spirit soul. The Mahat Tattva is the total cause, the total cosmic manifestation, and that total substance of the material cause, in which there are three modes of nature, is sometimes called Brahman. The Supreme Personality impregnates that total substance, and thus innumerable universes become possible. 14.4. It should be understood that all species of life, or son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and then I am the seed-giving father. Okay? So this is the end of the Adhikarana 1. Now, we have some Shaya doubt. At this point, a doubt may arise. Is material nature dependent or independent of Godhead? Purva-paksha, objection. In the Bhagavad-gītā 16.8, it is said, they say that this world is unreal, with no foundation, no God in control. They say it is produced of sex desire and has no cause other than lust. So this is the doubt. And now, in the next Adhikarana, this doubt will be resolved. Material nature is subordinate to God. Okay? Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Śloka Bhagavad-gītā, Samaveta Bhakti-yoga, Jai Nitai Ho,